It's another battle for the Aggies, and the KSL Sports Zone has it covered. It's a Black Friday showdown for the Aggies as they welcome in Boise State to Logan. Your home for all the play-by-play coverage of Aggie football is right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. You're locked on to JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
I want to congratulate our producer, Alex Napolis, who was familiar with the sabotage video more than Sly, our 1990s pop culture expert. I'm all, remember the sabotage video of Beastie Boys? And he's like, I can't remember it.
I'm actually looking it up.
Napolis
right now.
is in his mid-20s, and he's all, yeah, dude, they're running around in their like 70s cop gear with their glasses on.
I bet this is what Napolis did for a senior prank.
Dressing up like, yeah. No, it's always good to impersonate officers, just for the kicks. You know?
A great movie, Let's Be Cops. That's underrated. I actually love that. Damon Wayans Jr., they did a great job in that. That was funny.
Welcome back to the program. Thanks for being with us on a pre-Thanksgiving edition of the program. And it's a Win Ticket Wednesday at the station. You know what that means? You're going to be rewarded handsomely for listening to our program as you're headed out of town or, lots of people hitting the road. By the way, this is like one of the big nasty crash type situations across the country. And here in the state of Utah, we've had a bad year. We've had a bad year for driver fatalities and injury crashes. And so be safe out there, all right? However, if somebody's in the car with you, and if they're listening, or if you want to do the hands-free dialing, if you call us right now, call in number 12 on a Win Ticket Wednesday, gets a pair of tickets to see Nate Bargatze, the Big Dumb Eyes Tour coming to Delta Center next week. That's right. At the end of next week, you'll be able to get some tickets to see Nate Bargatze at Delta Center. All you have to do is call us right now, 801-575-ZONE. That's 801-575-ZONE, 801-575-9663. And caller number 12 gets themselves a pair of tickets to see Nate Bargatze over here at Delta Center next week. So there you go. Congrats for listening, all right? You get rewarded for listening on a holiday edition of the program. Let's kick off this hour, though, with the cut, as we always do. Let's jump in here, have a conversation about UCF versus BYU at LaVell Edwards Stadium come Saturday morning. Let's jump in right here with Chris Boyle. It's the cut, top of the hour.
It's time for the biggest story of the day. This is what made the cut with JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Trajan Wealth brings you this portion of the program. All your trusted local needs in retirement with a local fiduciary. All you have to do is give them a call, 801-899-7600, or visit their website, TrajanWealth.com. Chris Boyle covers UCF for Daytona Beach News, for the Daytona Beach News Journal. He's joining us right now on the program. Chris, thanks for being with us, man.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving to you guys. Thanks for having me.
Are you coming out to Provo for this matchup between UCF and BYU?
I will be, and I just trained my body for the cold by going to see some ice sculptures here out by Disney World. So I'm hoping that braces me for anything.
I don't know if it will brace you for anything, but it isn't. I will say it's a little bit more mild than it could be. I have sat through some awful games in November at LaVell Edwards Stadium and at Rice-Eccles Stadium that are in like sub. We're talking about in the teens with the wind chill, and it's not going to be nearly that bad, but it is going to be kind of cold. But it will be a nice setting for UCF to come out to Provo. These are two teams who have definitely had different seasons. What's Scott Frost 2.0 been like for UCF? I'm imagining last year the Gus Malzahn era ended so weird. At the very least, this is a much better situation for this UCF program going into their final game this year.
Yeah, I mean, Scott Frost 2.0 has been interesting. I don't think it's been quite exactly what UCF fans have expected in terms of the pace of play and the explosiveness that they were accustomed to in 2017 when he was last here. But I think that's also kind of down to the personnel and also a cognizance of not burning out the defense. And the defense has been the stronger unit all year. I actually think Alex Grinch, who took a lot of flack when he got hired as the defensive coordinator, has done a pretty good job with this unit at all three levels, particularly on the back end and coverage. They've been a pretty rock-solid group the whole season. But, yeah, it's been a different style of team. It's been inefficient at times. It's been fun to watch at times, certainly in the West Virginia and North Carolina games, I think when optimism was a little bit higher, but they've really, really struggled on the road. It's been downright ugly at times. They lost 30-3 at Baylor, one of the worst defensive teams in the league. They lost 48-9 to Texas Tech just 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. So they're averaging only 10.8 points per game, and they're 4 games away from home. They've lost 8 in a row on the road overall. And, given how good of a team BYU is traditionally at home with an over 75% win rate at LaVell Edwards Stadium historically, I think this is going to be a really, really tall task, especially with how much they're playing for and knowing that not only a spot in the Big 12 title game is on the line, but I talked to Mitch Harper just a couple of days ago. I said this is a game they may need to win with some style points, not necessarily to rub it in, but to give the casual voters that may be tuning in at 1 o'clock on 1 o'clock Eastern, as opposed to 10 p.m. Eastern, when sometimes you get that East Coast bias, I guess you can get from the voters. You got a chance to maybe open up a few eyes and show what you can do.
So what has been the problem? We talk about UCF and kind of the games that they've played, and Alex Grinch doing a great job thus far with what he's been able to work with. I did see the Cincinnati game, and there is some talent on this roster, but what has been the issue of not being able to put it together, or what is it? What are they so close on?
I think pre-snap penalties has been a huge issue all year. They've got close to 30 pre-snap penalties across the season. And that's been particularly evident on the road. I remember in a mid-October game against Cincinnati, they just continued to shoot themselves in the foot. Any sort of positive momentum they had in that game, because they drove the ball and they had the ball for over 40 minutes in that game. They ran 90 offensive plays and scored 11 points that day. Right. So they had opportunities to go out there and make things happen, but it felt like every time they started to put together 1-2 positive plays, they would go right back the other direction and give away 10, 15, 20 yards worth of penalties. So that's certainly one thing. Inexperience, especially on offense. I mean, if you look at the roster, Taven Jackson, this is his first year as a full-time starter. He started 1 game for Indiana last year and a handful the year before that. Miles Montgomery, their starting running back, it's the first time he's really been trusted as a full-time starter. A lot of their top receivers, Wade Charles, who had a career-high 6 receptions last year, is a true freshman. Dwayne Thomas was more of a part-time player at Charlotte. He's one of their top receivers this year. Dylan Wade, who had a monster game last week against Oklahoma State, was kind of a complimentary piece at Maryland. Now he's kind of been the go-to target for them. So a lot of inexperience. The offensive line has had its issues as well, getting pushed in the run game. So it's kind of compounded. All those things at once have really kind of stunted them from showing up every weekend and finishing drives and being able to put points on the board.
When you see this BYU team and what they've done this year, it's been, I think, exceeding expectations for what fans thought was going to happen after Jake Retzlaff left the program after he transferred out. And obviously adding, freshman Bear Bachmeier in the time frame that they did, post-spring, and then having a quarterback battle, and then the true freshman wins a quarterback battle. There were a lot of head-scratching moments for fans who were like, what are they supposed to expect this year? What have you watched with this BYU team that you've been impressed by with what the freshman's been able to do and what this team's been able to do now on the verge of 11 wins in the regular season?
Yeah, I think Bachmeier's done a good job of avoiding mistakes and running the football with physicality. I always think of BYU as just a really physical, obviously mature team. They are typically an older team than most of the league, in a given year. But I also think that they brought back so many playmakers on both sides of the ball that it really helped smooth that transition. Chase Roberts, I remember, caught a touchdown and was a real problem as a deep threat against UCF last year. LJ Martin had over 100 yards rushing against UCF last year in Orlando, and he's coming off of his best game against Cincinnati last week. The defense has certainly impressed me. Jack Kelly has really been a player that's caught my eye the few times I've turned BYU on, and his ability to get after the quarterback and make plays, in the second level of defense as well. I think he's really been impressive. He's a guy that'll be on my all Big 12 ballot here in a matter of weeks. And I think certainly the safeties have been good too. They've got 3 or 4 guys back there that can make things happen in coverage. And if UCF's not careful, they can certainly find the football.
So what kind of performance are we going to see out of UCF? You say, defense has been doing good, but your guys are terrible on the road. You had a pretty good win last week against Oklahoma State. You guys played well. Tatum Jackson had a nice day. Of course, a couple interceptions, but for the most part, they played pretty good in squeaking out that win. But what kind of performance do you see for your team at the end of the season here against and fighting for bowl eligibility as well on Saturday at LaVelle Edwards Stadium?
I see a hungry performance. I think there's a lot of incentive for them. Obviously, they're going to want to go to a bowl game, especially the seniors that are not going to be able to have any eligibility beyond this year. This could be their last football game, right? So they want to go out there and get back to a bowl game for the program. Scott Frost has financial incentive to win this game. I know it's something he's not really going to talk about publicly, but in his contract, if they win and they get to any bowl game in 2025, he gets an additional year, a sixth year at over $5 million in salary. So there's motivation. Yeah, there's motivation for him to win the game certainly too. It was a bit of an eye popper when we saw the terms of the contract released back in the summer. I think this is certainly a team that wants to prove that it can be not only competitive on the road, but go out there and maybe pull off an upset. Last year, a good example for this would be the Iowa State game. I think that would be a great template for them if they can pull off a similar performance to that. They went on the road last October to Iowa State, and they were ranked in the top 10 at the time. They were expected to win that game by 2 or 3 scores, and UCF led for most of the game, including into the final minute. They gave up a late touchdown. Jakari Brown ran for well over 100 yards that day. So if they can give you something like that, I think that would be something that, win or lose, UCF fans would be really positive about if they can go out there and have a quality end-of-season performance as opposed to seeing kind of the same things we've seen typically. Now, do I expect that against BYU? No, quite frankly, I don't. I think we're going to see that this team, Scott Frost the other day, kind of for the first time all year said we are what we are. I mean, you're 11 games into the season. You know exactly what kind of team you are right now. And unfortunately for them, it's been undisciplined. It's been self-destructive at times, and it's been inefficient. So I think that, to me, is probably the most likely scenario is that you're going to get BYU rolling early, and I think it's going to be one of those things where it could be a bit of a snowball effect.
One thing that this UCF team has always been able to do, and obviously it'll take some time for Scott Frost to build his guys up, but he recruits that area in Florida well. How has the recruiting been for him this time around? Obviously, you need a little bit of extra time. And what's kind of his superpower when it comes to bringing in guys who buy into that UCF program?
It's been interesting. He certainly hit big his first time around here. You go back to his first recruiting class, he was able to land 2 guys in Tristan Hill and Richie Grant, who are off the radar 2-star recruits who they developed into second-round NFL draft picks on defense. So they were able to find some guys that were overlooked or didn't attract the major recruiting networks at the time, and they were able to do that. Now, they're hoping to do that again this time, but really their class is very small by comparison for 2026. They only have 13 commits, and only 5 of them are from the state of Florida. So they've kind of branched out. It's been tough for them to kind of reestablish some of those relationships, I think, and of course you have the new age of recruiting, right? Like you have the opportunity to go find more established college football players. If you're spending money, would you rather take a handful of shots in the dark on high school guys, or would you rather go out there and buy players you've seen tape of at this level? So I think that's another major question mark that's going to be the long-term vision. Now, that could also be guys coming back home. Dylan Wade, for instance, is an Orlando native. They've been able to find Sincere Edwards, who is an impact player at Pitt as a true freshman, came back, and he's from Apopka. So they have that second chance type of recruiting available to them as well. I think long-term, they got to find a balance. They got to find a balance between foundational pieces that they want to retain long-term and develop from day one, and then also filling the gaps in the depth chart that can provide immediate help at key positions.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting game on Saturday. I always, when teams have things on the line, take the Utah game last week at Kansas State. They're fighting for bowl eligibility as well, and they came out and had a great performance. And so hopefully there's something the same from UCF, so we can see some good football this weekend. But what is your opinion on the whole CFP kind of roundup and how we have potentially 2 or 3 Big 12 teams, and how this whole is shaking out? Like, we still don't know who's in the Big 12 championship till the end of this week, and how UCF can kind of play spoiler on that.
Yeah, I think UCF definitely has the opportunity to play spoiler. Like I said, I think BYU has to win this game, and they have to do so relatively impressively.
Right.
I told Mitch this the other day. Quite frankly, I thought BYU got jobbed last year. The fact that they were undefeated for, 9 or 10 weeks of the season, they lost 2 of their last 3 games, and it was almost forgotten that they beat SMU in September, and that was the last team that made the field as a wild card, right? So, obviously the on-field result didn't matter at the end of the day. It was more like, what does the team look like in late November as opposed to what they looked like in the first couple months of the season. You're kind of seeing that play out again with Miami and Notre Dame this year. So it makes you wonder, with this voting system, do the on-field results even matter, right?
Right.
And I think that's a huge, huge problem. I think if we're going to have games where you're trying to build all these marquee matchups early in the season, and then later on in the year, they don't matter at all when it comes to the voting, what's the point? What's the incentive for these teams to schedule this way? Just schedule as many easy wins as you can and try to go out there and win your conference. I think it's a bad look. It's a bad precedent to set. And I think the Big 12 has shown year on year in the last couple of seasons here that they can go out there and their top teams can compete at a very high level. I think Texas Tech is a well-deserving top 5 team right now, considering the talent on the roster and what they've done and how they've done it. The fact they've blown out so many teams this season. And I think BYU, you go back and look at some of those wins. East Carolina's a road win that's aging well, certainly every week. And I know that they haven't had the strongest schedule, but Cincinnati on the road at nighttime, I think is a really nice win. I think it's a win that any team in the country would be happy to have as a road win. So I think that they should be very much in this conversation, regardless of the conference they play in. And it may take, a loss or 2 from a team in front of them to slide in, but I would absolutely have them certainly in the discussion here in the final 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch how, I don't know if it's – do you think that when the Big 12 added – UCF, BYU, even the Four Corner schools, Cincinnati, Houston. Did the conference take a big hit when it came to just like the way they looked for other conferences? Because it just seems like, even though the ACC doesn't seem like it's one of the strong ones out there. I mean, you live out east, and so you're able to kind of get that vibe a little bit more because obviously Florida gets talked about a lot as an SEC team. Florida State even gets talked about a lot, and Miami does obviously as both as ACC teams. And so I don't know what the vibe is outside of kind of the world we live in, on except for what we see with the College Football Playoff Committee, who just seem like they like to lean toward those other conferences.
Well, you lose the 2 major brands in the league, right? You lose Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC, and theoretically it makes the league substantially weaker, and it makes the SEC substantially stronger. Now, Oklahoma's had a very good season. Texas has had their moments. They've lost most of the big games they've had on the schedule this year. But that's the reason I think the perception of the Big 12 is down from a national perspective and maybe from a casual perspective, to be honest, is that the 2 biggest names in the league defected and left the league kind of for dead. But I think that you look at some of the teams that they've added over the years. Arizona State last year took Texas to overtime, really should have won that game. And you look at what Cam Scatterbo was able to do in the NFL this year. Jordan Tyson might be a top 10 pick this coming year. I mean, there's good
Spencer
football
Fano,
in this league.
Yeah. A lot.
Yeah, Spencer Fano at Utah, who's going to be a high draft pick. Tetaroa McMillan at Arizona was a top 10 pick last year. Right. Travis Hunter won the Heisman. I mean, that's not by accident. There's really good players and really good teams in the Big 12, and I think that the league was undervalued last year, and I didn't expect that it potentially could be again this year. In what's been sort of a down year for the Big Ten. I mean, their best teams have been good: Indiana, Ohio State, and Oregon to maybe a slightly lesser extent, but I thought if any year that they were going to get two teams pretty easily, it was going to be this one, given how well BYU's played all year and given how much money Texas Tech spent and how much that return on investment's paid off.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how this one goes. We'll all convene at this. Well, Sly won't. He's going to be in Lawrence watching the Utes from the sidelines there, calling that Utah game. I'll be up in the press box though, and Chris, come over, say hey to all of us over there in the BYU media area on that side, and we'll high five, and you can enjoy the beautiful view from up there. At the very least, it'll be cold, but not where we're at, my guy. It's going to be good food up there, and we're going to have a good time, man.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's like I was saying earlier, it's my first time ever going to Utah. I know the stadium views are spectacular. I've seen them from just pictures, so I'm looking forward to that. If anybody listening's got food recommendations or things to do out there in the 48 hours or so that I'll be in Salt Lake and Provo, give me a holler. You know where to find me.
Wait till you scarf down one of those cougar tails.
Okay. that sounds like a winner.
All right, settle down. It's a big giant donut at the stadium, all right? That's all I need to know. But hey,
thank
look,
you guys so much.
It'll be good. All right, Chris, we'll talk to you on Saturday. Have fun, safe travels. There you go. Chris Boyle covers UCF for the Daytona Beach News Journal. That'd be a fun paper to work for. I got to live out in Daytona Beach, Florida, man. Oh, dang. My brother lives out there in that area, and it's
nice.
Well, you go out there and you're kind of like, gosh, he'll do the thing too where he'll text me a screenshot of their weather, only on days that he knows that it's bad here.
Oh, that's a real brother move right there.
It's an older brother move.
Yeah,
too.
oh, for sure.
Nobody asked, and then he'll send me a screenshot.
Do you ever do the younger brother thing where you just pop up at his house like, hey, we're here for a week. What's going on?
Oh, I've definitely done it. I've definitely showed up at his. Well, I've definitely been like, "Hey, man, I'm at the Orlando airport. I'm here for a thing. Can I stay at your house?" Huh?
Let me talk to my wife. Hold on.
All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. Cole Bagley, our Utah Mammoth insider for KSLSports.com, is going to join us coming up here. Utah Mammoth, by the way, right after our program ends, we'll have a shortened 6 o'clock hour, and you're going to get the pregame at 6:30, and then it's going to be the Utah Mammoth and the Montreal Canadiens facing off over at Delta Center here, the last of a 4-game homestand. So we'll see how they can do. Can they make it a third win in a row? Boy, they need it. Stay right here with us, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone.
The exclusive home of the Utah Mammoth is on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Ian Cole gets to the puck first in the Utah zone. Cooley waiting for it. Cooley on hat trick. Watch! Bingo! Logan Cooley gets his second hat trick of the season. Points in 4 straight entering tonight. Bowman snowed under. Cooley at the empty net. Give him 4! Gets his 4th goal of the night. It's 5-1.
You're locked into JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It's time to talk hockey with the Utah Mammoth and NHL insider on KSLSports.com, Cole Bagley on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
I heard that intro, and I had like a weird flashback back to when we had portable CD players. Remember that?
The fact that you even said
remember, you're like,
players.
hold it straight. Hold it straight. And you were really classy if you bought like a nice Sony Discman that had the.
You had to show it off too.
They had it wasn't tracking. What'd they call it when it was like the skip? They basically had like the skip control on it.
Skip protection, yeah.
You could like run around and it wouldn't skip. And then I had the cheap brands that had to be like walking around like it was on a platter so that it wouldn't skip. But that like intro, and then I started thinking, what a weird time that we lived in. We were like. And I remember actually like being like longing for the Walkman, right? For the tapes. Give me the tapes. Those don't skip, man.
Right. Yeah, those are like rocks. You can throw them in anything.
Oh, man. I had a tape player in my car until like 10 years ago. I had a freaking
Wow.
cassette tape player. Oh, yeah, and the old Toyota. Toyota and Lexus rolled with the tape player for a long time. They're like, you still want one of these? Everyone's like, no, I'm good. Well, we're going to put it in anyway. All right, joining us on the program right now, he is Cole Bagley. He's our Utah Mammoth insider for KSLSports.com. 2 wins in a row for this club. Cole, are you impressed right now of these last 2 games? What's been the biggest difference, do you think?
It goes back to what we talked about last week of just effort, and a lot of that is maturity. You can't really say like, oh, this is one of the youngest teams in the National Hockey League anymore. In fact, I think they're like 18th or 19th. So,
how do we get so old? Yeah. Oh, Schmidt.
Yeah.
Nick Schmidt showed up. Vanacek showed up.
Yeah, the offseason was bringing in the older guys. But the thing that you can point to is that the stars on this team are still really young. You know, Logan Cooley and Dylan Gunther, JJ Peterka, Keller is even relatively young, Sergachev as well. And for those really young guys, it just comes down to maturity. It comes down to deciding to play with full effort, full energy every single night. And a lot of that's learning, right? Like a lot of that is figuring out how to be consistent. And as they've shown, that's still part of the process for the Mammoth right now. But yeah, I've been impressed with the last 2 games because they have decided to play with everything that they've got. They've been good in all the small details. That's what I talked with Clayton Keller about this morning. Was look, their battles have been a lot better. They're back checking a lot better. They're making those kind of extra effort plays that make a big difference and go a long way. So yeah, I'm impressed, but they need to continue to impress me, if you will.
Yeah, we talked to Coach Bear last week, right before last Friday, right before they started this 2-game win streak, and talking about everybody was talking about effort, and he kind of commended the guys for staying professional. What vibe have you got from him during kind of that lull, right? I think they lost 8 of the last 10 before that. But fighting through that, he's just like, it's a long season. You're going to have these ups and downs. You're going to have winning streaks. You're going to have losing streaks. What about him? What have you seen from him this past week in being able to handle those losses and get these guys ready to go?
Yeah, the biggest thing was after that Vegas loss
last Thursday.
Last Thursday. This coaching staff and this team, I think, really took that personally. Obviously, losing to Vegas is nothing to really
be down about. Yeah.
No, I mean they're one of the best teams in the NHL. They have some of the biggest stars. Jack Eichel, Mitch Marner. Plenty of really top tier talent, guys that are already named to Olympic hockey teams.
Right. Sure.
Eichel's arguably the best American player in the game right now. So nothing to really get too down about, but it shows how much they care. The fact that they wouldn't settle for that result. They went to work the next day, and that was the toughest practice I have seen Tourney hold probably through the entirety that Utah has been around, since the Mammoth have existed. And it was full contact, zone battles. It was guys going at each other, teammates going at each other, respecting each other, of course, but full contact, full physical, really sticking to each other in the crease area, hitting each other hard along the boards, battling hard, and throughout most of the day as well. It wasn't just if you lost, you did push-ups on the ice. It was if you lost possession, you did push-ups on the ice. And so it's always funny to see like NHL players doing adults doing those like push-up drills, because I remember doing those as a kid.
Yeah, it's like a coach going, "Hey, take a lap, Tanev." Exactly. It's like, geez, what?
and that guy makes a lot more money than you do, but you're in charge and you get to tell him. So, yeah, I think for me that's what's been impressive is that the coaching staff and the players would not settle for that kind of a result. I think it was more the culmination of how they've played recently as opposed to just that game. But that's when they put their foot down. They said, enough's enough. We got to figure this out. They've relied on their veterans. The young guys, the kids have stepped up. And, yeah, they've played really good hockey for the last 2 games.
When we talked a little bit about, some of the struggles with this team before this, obviously, winning changes a lot of those attitudes, right. But it's also just, kind of getting back to where I think that they had been previously. I think was part of that. It was like they had lost something in that kind of streak of between when they went 8-2, winning 7 in a row to the spot that we were sitting right like this last week. And we're going, ooh, and I remember actually thinking to myself, man, I hope they win, because it's not going to be a very fun conversation with Bear the next day. And, of course, then they get their butts kicked by Vegas on Thursday, and Bear answered the tough questions. What has he done as a coach, do you think? Because a lot of people were going, get Bear out of here. You know, you do the fired up like, oh, I don't like how this guy's coaching. What has changed from like the tactical standpoint that you've seen? Because obviously the effort part and asking your guys to play hard, that's one thing. But what changes were made from the tactical standpoint? Anything from the lines perspective that you thought? Because we talked about that too. It's like, man, some of this stuff might need to change up. Has any of that changed at all?
There has been some changes. I don't know if it's necessarily a direct if that's like a direct result of these wins. But yeah, I mean, Cooley and Gunther are back together, which is a big deal. I wrote about this in my column the other night. I believe the team is 10-6 when they play on the same line, or 10-5 when they're on the same line, as opposed to 11-6 or 1-6 when they're not together. That's pretty significant, right? Like that shows how much of an X factor those two are. And then when Logan Cooley gets on the stat sheet, Utah is 8-3 in those games. So those two are definitely an X factor. And yeah, I know a lot of people as well have been like, well, why isn't JJ Peterka playing with them again? Well, since he's changed the lines quite a bit recently. And one of the biggest changes was against Buffalo about 2 weeks ago. He put Peterka on the third line. Peterka's got 5 or 6 points since that change. So he was the only one really, beneficiary of those changes. And when things are going right and players are scoring goals and production's happening,
they're usually okay with that.
Yeah, you don't change it up. And, Gunther and Cooley just hung 7 points on Vegas a couple days ago.
Right.
So I think that's the explanation for why Peterka hasn't necessarily been reunited. They don't have the full kid line. But that's what I've noticed tactically. I think it is you need Cooley and Gunther playing together. That's just they should never be separated again moving forward. But then I think in terms of maybe his demeanor or his approach, there's definitely been a little bit of a change in Tourney, I think, over the last week. He's been a lot more forthcoming. He's been a lot more willing to share, and call things out and say things as they really are. Not that he wasn't before, but there's been a noticeable difference.
You think there's pressure, that him feeling some kind of pressure to do
100%.
that? 100%.
I mean, this is a team that should make the playoffs, and to only win 2 games over the stretch of 11 is unacceptable. Right. So yeah, I think that he kind of realized like, whoa, things are real here in Utah. This isn't Arizona anymore. And he's seen this team through the rebuild. There has never been pressure like this.
I don't think that this team doesn't sneak losses past the general public. I think that's the kind of thing that I think Arizona got away with, right? Like you think about it, you're like, and that doesn't happen here. And I know fans looked like they were a little bit too aggressive about. I was like, all right, slow the roll a little bit, like on the fire the coach Tourney stuff. But at the same time, like, there are things that you look at and you go, okay, if there's this team and you have all these guys. The organization also looks and goes, hey, man, we're asking you to delicately but quickly get these lines together and get these millionaires playing well together because we're signing them up for long term. Right. And we want you to be here long term too, but the only way that you stay, these guys are staying here. Right. All right.
We can't fire the players.
Right. And you don't want to. Why would you want to not have Cooley and Gunther together for the next 7 or 8 years?
Right.
So in that sense, I think it was interesting because it was a moment that the market hadn't dealt with yet. So Canadians tonight, Montreal comes into town. What are we expecting for this type of a matchup? How winnable of a game is this for this Utah hockey or the Utah Mammoth?
It's very winnable, but it's funny how similar these two teams are. I think the Canadians are the Mammoth of the Eastern Conference. These are 2 young teams, relatively young teams with very young stars. Cole Caulfield being one of those. So to be honest, I don't know what we're going to see tonight. You never know. I mean, you're getting 2 teams that on any given night, either of these guys can put 7 on the other net or 7 in their own net. And so, and that's what we saw in Montreal a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
It was a close game, but then Montreal pulled away and it was 6-3. So what I do expect is a very fast game, a high-paced game, and I think those are your X factors as they're going to be all season for Utah. It's Cooley and Gunther, I think, and when those guys are flying, when those guys are playing well, Utah wins hockey games. And the same thing can be said for Montreal. When Cole Caulfield is playing really, really good, when Lane Hudson is playing really, really good, that team is winning hockey games. So that for me is I think whichever team can get the most out of their young stars will end up winning tonight.
Cole Bagley covers the Utah Mammoth for KSLSports.com, and you want to get the hat trick afterward. You're going to get it from Cole. It's an awesome read every time, every game, no matter what. You're going to get the breakdown of those games from Cole, and it's awesome to be able to get that. We have an awesome resource in Cole being in the building. So, hey, have fun over there. We'll be watching, see how this thing goes down. So thanks for hanging out, man.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
We'll take a break. We'll come back. We have Best and Worst next. Wrapping up this hour. Stay here at 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Wrapping up the hour with our picks for the best and worst moments on today's show. As JJ and Alex want to hear your best and worst of the day.
Did we give away those Nate Bargatze tickets? Those phone lines probably lit up, didn't they? We love that clean comedy here in Utah. Did you hear that word he said? It wasn't a cuss word. Good for you. Let me see here. Got Best and Worst. It's all brought to you by the good folks at the Doug Smith dealerships in American Fork Spanish Fork and in Linden. Nobody knows cars like Doug. Go check it out for yourself. The best, North Texas's head coach Eric Morris. This is how you do it, by the way. If you're, I think, a team like Oklahoma State, I think they hit a home run with Eric Morris. It's a young guy. He is a run and gun guy, spread offense. You know why? Mike Leach coaching tree. Wow. That gets me going. I like the Mike Leach coaching tree, man. The Mike Leach coaching tree doesn't necessarily have a lot of defense in it. But I don't care. Spread it out and get some scores. But he's a guy in his 30s. He's a guy who's on the up and up. And Oklahoma State needed a win. I think that was a good win for them. I think that. Yeah. And by the way, they hired Mike Gundy when he was in his late 30s. You know what I mean? Like, let's get it going. Let's see if we can start up somebody else being, stay there for 20 seasons.
Yeah, how many offensive guys came out of Tony Dungy's coaching tree, right?
Yeah.
I feel like a coaching tree is like when you say a guy's name like Bill Parcells or Bill Belichick or something like that. It's a particular phase of the game, either defense or offense.
The by far worst of the day was last night having to listen to Hunter Yurachek, the committee chair for the College Football Playoff Committee, answering questions with Reese Davis when he was asked specifically about, are you guys making decisions on Ole Miss as they dropped, based off of the coaching situation there? Here's what the question sounded like. Here's what the more inane answer sounded like.
But there was a change at 6-7 with Oregon and Ole Miss swapping spots. How much of an impact potentially could it be on Ole Miss if it's determined they don't have their head coach in the field?
6-7. But seriously, Rich, we didn't have any discussion about Ole Miss and their coach. That was.
I don't want to hear the explanation at all.
No, was it?
Dude, it was so bad. Okay, we put the crickets in.
I mean, of course.
But there was enough. But there was a gap in there. You know, Alex Napoles, our producer, knows it was like this 6-7, and he did the hand gesture.
He did the hand too?
Yes, he freaking did. And everyone was like this.
I think that's why they made the change, just so he could lay that joke and it not land.
I was talking to Mitch Harper about this because we did this on 1st and 12 last night because it happened, and Mitch goes, you know what? I think this is good because now 6-7. If it's not dead tonight, it will be dead soon when 64-year-old CFP selection committee. But it just shows you how unserious that this is, right?
Right.
It just shows you how
committee's a joke.
I know when you make that kind of a thing, and then he goes, "But seriously, Rich." His name's Reese Davis, by the way. But seriously, Rich. So you make a dumb joke. I hope that he sat in that awkward silence and was like, "Oh gosh, my grandkids are gonna kill me. My wife's going to kill me for saying that. The country's going to kill me for saying that." Because that was so dumb. It just came across the whole committee.
Got
was so stupid.
much money. Just catch my checks. I don't care.
Ridiculous. All right. More to go around the corner. We'll get you ready for Utah Mammoth hockey. Stay right here. Dialed in. 97.5 VKSL Sports Zone.